Hello crafty family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So Crafty. For today's DIY projects, we'll be creating some really fresh home decor DIYs that feature a combination of roses, antique and French country themes, and farmhouse. Now these are so adorable for the home, but they would also be great for Mother's Day gifts. Now, I've chosen several different ways to finish these, but you could stain, paint, or even decorate these in any way that makes your heart happy. As always, all of the supplies needed to complete these projects are listed in the description box below. Now before we start, I have to say, hey to all of my subscribers, and if you are a new visitor to my channel today, I hope you consider subscribing as well, and stick around to enjoy these crafts and all of the tips that I'll share along the way. So now, let's just jump right into these projects. This project is a beautiful rose bouquet in a metal container. Now we're going to need one of these metal planters from the Dollar Tree in your color choice. We're going to need one bundle of these large cabbage roses, and I got these from Family Dollar. And we're going to need some farmhouse ribbon from the Dollar Tree. We're going to start off by grabbing one of the containers. I chose to go with the Ivory container for this project today. Now I'm going to grab some styrofoam. You could use some floral foam if you like, but I'm going to sit the bottom of the container on that styrofoam to mark the outline of the bottom of the container so we could put a piece inside. And I'm just using my utility blade to go ahead and just cut off around that marking just to make sure that this would fit snug inside of the bottom of my container. Now I'm just going to stick it right in, and it does stay in place, but you can hot glue this in place if you like. Now I am going to go ahead and add some Spanish moss to the top of this just to hide it. You could use some of the green moss as well if you like, but I'm just going to stick a nice little layer right on top of my styrofoam. Now once that's done, we can start working on the fun part, which is the roses. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip all of the roses from the main stem with my wire clippers, and I'm going to take the longest rose and I'm going to stick it right in the center of the foam. Now this is where we're going to start building up our bouquet. So I'm just going to cut each one of the roses that I put around it a little shorter, just so it sits a little lower than that center rose, and I'm just going to put these all the way around that center rose nice and even. Now we will be fluffing these out at the end, so no worries about those gaps. So here are all of my roses that I've put into place, and it looks great, but now we're just going to go ahead and start fluffing out those cabbage roses. And this is what I love about these roses. They just get so big and full and beautiful, and I absolutely love it. Now here they are all fluffed out. It made a huge difference in this bouquet. Now it still was kind of looking kind of sparse. So what I did is I grabbed some greenery. Now I picked this up from the Dollar Tree. This is just one of the extra filler stems that they do carry. And I'm going to remove the tags and then cut all the stems from the main branch on this piece as well. And then I'm just going to start sticking it in between some of the roses, and I'm doing this just random. Just add it wherever you feel you need a little pop of greenery to help blend everything in. And then fluff out those roses again, and here is what the arrangement will look like so far. Now as an option, I wanted to add a little ribbon accent. Now this is totally optional. I'm using this farmhouse ribbon that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm simply going to make one of my easy finger bows. I'm sure you guys have seen me do this before, and I'm just going to stick a long tail of the ribbon between my two fingers as shown here, and then I'm just going to start wrapping that ribbon around my thumb and index finger for how many loops I want on my bow. Now in this case, I'm going for a 4-loop bow, and then I'm going to cut another long tail that's left over at the end. You take that long tail, you wrap it around the complete bundle as I show here, pull it through, and you see it made a loop around that bundle, then go right back through that loop with that tail and pull really tight. This will make one of the quickest and easiest bows that I've ever made, and I love using this in my projects. So you remove it from your fingers, and then you fluff out the loops of your bow, and there you have it, a really quick and easy loopy bow. So now all we have to do is trim up the tails, and I'm just going to trim them down, fold them in half, and then give them kind of a little dovetail finish. Now I'm going to add this to my bundle. I didn't want to hide the Flowers and Garden logo on there, so I'm putting it a little bit to the side. In order to do this, I can just lift out my entire bundle from that foam since I didn't glue it down, so I could just work on the bucket, put just a dab of hot glue there, and add your ribbon to the side there. And then I'm going to go ahead and secure those tails down as well. I'm only using the smallest bit of hot glue just in case I decide to remove the bow, but you could put as much as you like, especially if you want this to be a permanent fixture on your little bucket. So now I could just place my entire bouquet right back in that bucket, fluff everything out, and you have this beautiful arrangement. And here is my beautiful arrangement on display, and I love how this one turned out. Now these roses from the Family Dollar are absolutely gorgeous, and they were perfect for this project. And then accenting them with a little sprigs of greenery was a nice little touch. Now I was so lucky to find this Ivory planter too, and the final little bow touch adds to the look and pulls it all together. Let me know what you think about this project in the comments below. Now this project is a set of wood and clawfoot riser boxes. We're going to need 2 of these wood boxes from the Dollar Tree. So what we're going to do with the boxes is I'm going to take a couple of craft sticks. Now these are the quart craft sticks that you can get from Lowe's. Now what I like to do is to cover up the holes of the boxes so they'll be nice solid boxes. So I'm just going to cut the rounded edge off. I'm going to lay it over the hole and cut it the width of the inside of the box. Now once you go ahead and just test fit it to make sure it fits in the box, so I'm going to use this piece as a template to cut the other 3 pieces that I'll need to cover both of the holes in both of the boxes. And now to attach them, I'm just using a dab of hot glue. You could use some wood glue if you like, it's all up to you. And just cover the holes from the inside of the box as shown here. And now you just repeat this for the other 3 holes. Now here are the boxes with their holes all nice and covered up. So go ahead and remove any tags that are on the boxes because we are going to prepare to paint these. Now you can stain or paint them whatever you like, but I really wanted to keep that nice vanilla tan neutral color on these. So I'm going to be using some of this khaki acrylic paint touched up with a little bit of white to brighten up the color. Now I'm just going to put some on my little piece of paper here along with some of the white, and I'm just going to blend it together until I get a color that I'm happy with. Now the color I'm going for is a little bit close to what the actual wood color is, but this will provide a really creamy, smooth texture over that wood, and that's what I'm going for. So I'm applying this paint starting on the inside, and as you can see, compared to the other tray, it is a little darker, but it does give a really nice smooth finish. And now all you want to do is do the inside and outside of both of your containers. Now here are both of my containers. They're nice and painted, still a little bit wet, but I wanted to show you guys what that smooth color looks like on them. Okay, so our containers are now nice and dry, so we can start the fun part, which is embellishing them. Now what I decided to do is use some of the metal hardware that I had on hand, and I go to Amazon to get a lot of these pieces. So you guys may have seen me use these before. These are little jewelry box feet. I love these. I'll link these in the description box below, and I love using those on my riser containers. What I'm also going to use are these little decorative corner pieces. Now I picked these up. They come in a very large quantity, really inexpensive, from Amazon as well. I'll link these below as well. But these are what I'm going to add to my box as well to give it a really high-end antique kind of look. So I'm going to start with those corner pieces, and I'm going to add one to each one of the corners of the box. Now you could do the front and the back, but I'm going to do the front, back, and the sides of my box. You can apply this with some Gorilla Glue E6000 or just some really good hot glue. It doesn't take much to hold these in place, and these are really lightweight. So as you can see, this is what the 2 front corners will look like. Now I'm going to continue adding them all the way around the box, and here is what they look like all the way around. It completely upgraded the look of this box. I love it. So once that's done, I'm going to flip it over and we're going to start adding the feet to the bottom, and I'm going to add one in each corner. Now these little feet do come with little screws, but there's no need to put screws on this lightweight project. I'm just going to use my wood hot glue for this on the corners of the box, and as you can see, here are the little feet on the little riser, and I'm going to repeat this for the other one. And now we have a beautiful set. I love this little brush antique brass finish, and now we could decorate. And oh my goodness, you guys, look how amazing these turned out. Now, I absolutely love the antique brass finish of these metal accents, and it really does give them a higher end look. Now, I do buy these metal accessories in 20 to 50 packs, and they're so fun to use in your crafting. And you can create so much when adding them to Dollar Tree wood items. Now, I hope that you guys are able to snatch these up too and give this project a try. Now, this project is a set of decorative storage containers. Now, we're going to need 2 of these round gift boxes from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to need some of this gray and white contact paper from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to grab the paper and the boxes. Go ahead and remove those lids. We'll set those to the side and work on those later. So we're going to start with the boxes, and I'm going to be using this gray and white contact paper. Now, I think Dollar Tree has really stepped up their game in their contact paper variety and style. This one was really cute, so I had to get it. So I'm just going to cut a strip at least an inch wide, taller than each one of my containers. And I'm going to do that for the taller container and the shorter container. You want to make sure, like I said, it's at least an inch taller. So now what I'm going to do is take one of the containers, remove the contact paper from the backing, and I'm going to start applying it to the container, making sure that it's overlapping the top and bottom edges. Now, a good guide to start this is on the existing seam of your container, and just start applying it a couple of inches at a time, making sure it's nice and smooth, free of wrinkles and bubbles as you go. So once you reach the end, you want to smooth everything out, and you'll see there's a little edge overlapping the top and the bottom, and this is exactly what you want your project to look like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm taking my utility knife and I'm cutting a little slits along that overlapped portion. This will help you fold that piece to the inside of the container without any wrinkles. This will have the pieces overlap. You'll go down nice and smooth, and if you do it in sections instead of one solid piece, you'll find it so much easier to work with. Now here is the top edge all nice and folded in. You'll see how clean that looks, and we're going to repeat this process, and we're going to do this along the bottom as well, cutting those little slits all the way around and folding that in as well. Now here is that bottom edge all nice and folded in. Now even though this looks really neat, I do want to cover up that barcode on the bottom to give it a professional finish. So I'm going to cover it up with some of this thick craft paper. Now I'm just going to take my hot glue, I'm going to run it along the edge of the round box first, and then fill in the center with a little bit. Press it down on that craft paper, and once it's nice and bonded, just go around it with your utility blade to go ahead and trim off all of that excess craft paper. And once you're done trimming, this is what it looks like. So clean and professional. I just love how this looks. And now we're going to repeat the same process with your other containers. Now here are both of my containers all trimmed out with the contact paper. The bottoms are nice and clean, and this is what they look like. So yes, these do turn out really good. So now grab the lids. Now originally I wanted to use that same contact paper for the lids, but I decided to go with a contrast. So I'm using some of this lighter wood grain paper, contact paper from the Dollar Tree. Now to cover these, we're kind of going to use that same concept we did for the containers. What I'm going to do is I am going to cut a strip wider than the lid, and we're just going to cut a square that's going to be wider on all 4 sides of the lid for each one of the lids of our containers. Now we're going to remove the contact paper from the backing, put it on the top of the containers and smooth it out. Now keep in mind, if you have glitter on your containers, you kind of want to sand that off in the beginning. So now what I'm doing is I'm trimming down around the lid. I want to make sure I have about at least 1/4 of an inch of an overlap around the edge. Now we're going to take our utility blade and you guessed it, we're going to cut those little slit notches in there and then fold that down along the natural crease of the top of the lid. It doesn't have to cover the sides because we are going to do another strip to cover that. So here is the top of the lid all covered. So now what I want to do is take that same wood grain contact paper again, and I am going to cut a strip. Now this will cover the side of the container. You want to make sure you use a ruler for this because you want that edge to be nice and straight. Now I did cut this strip at least double the width of the edge trim, and I'm just going to carefully apply it along, making sure the straight edge is along the top of the lid, and you'll have overlap at the open side of the lid as shown here. And then once that's nice and done, go ahead and take your utility blade, go ahead and cut all your little slits and notches around the edge. And then once that's done all the way around, just fold those in one by one, making sure they're pressed firmly into place. This makes your project look so very neat and high end. So here's one of my lids. It's all trimmed out. It almost looks like one continuous piece, but doing it in these pieces and doing a test fit, you could see it looks very clean and professional. And now I'm just going to repeat the same thing for the other lid, and you have a beautiful 2-piece set. Now originally this was my plan to have these look like this, but I'm going to remove the lids because I decided to take it up a step further. Now what I'm going to do is I decided to add knobs to the center of my lids. Now in my stash, I have these glass knobs that I got from Amazon a while back, and I think in bulk they came out to less than $1 a piece. Now you could also pick these up from the Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree has a variety of different glass knobs as well that you could use if you do not want to purchase these on Amazon. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just visually find the center of each one of these lids, and I'm going to go ahead and mark the center with a dot with my Sharpie. Now once that's done, we can add our knobs. Now if you just want to hot glue these on, that would be fine, but I wanted mine to be extra secure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these screws that came with these knobs, and in order to apply this we need to have a hole in the center. Now you don't really need to use a drill for this since this is just cardboard. What we're going to do is I'm just using a nail. So I'm poking a nail through it and I'm just kind of wiggling it around so that hole is wide enough to stick a screw through. Now I'm going to flip it over to the inside, work that nail in again, and then push that little screw right through the hole. Now once it's already poking through, you just want to go ahead and grab your knob and just screw it on top of there, and you help with your screwdriver to make sure it's nice and tight. You want to do this for both of your lids, and now you have your knobs applied. Now you could just add these to the top of your containers to have a really beautiful decorative container with a little bit of sassy bling at the top. And here you have it, a set of beautiful containers that you can make super easy. Now I really love the combination of the pattern with the wood and the contact paper. It looks like something you would definitely purchase in a retail store. And those glass knobs look really great on these as well. And you're ready to decorate and display these in your space. Let me know what you would store in these cute little containers. Now this project is a sconce and wall decor piece. We're going to need one of these tag style signs from any season from the Dollar Tree. We're also going to need one of these decorative hooks from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to need more of this wood grain contact paper from the Dollar Tree. Okay, I'm going to start with my little tag sign. You want to go ahead and remove the string that's on there. And what I decided to do is I wanted to use the side with the pattern on it for my contact paper because I wanted the back to be nice and clean. Now, if you do have glitter, make sure you sand all of that out so you have a nice smooth surface. Now, once that's all sanded and clean, I am going to lay out my contact paper and place my tag right on top of the wood grain you want to be on top of your tag. You want to cut out a piece, remove the backing from that contact paper, lay it down with the sticky side up, and then you can just place your decorative side of your tag face down on that contact paper, making sure it overlaps the edges. Now, this contact paper is very forgiving. You can lift and replace it to make sure everything is smooth and there are no bubbles or wrinkles. Now, once everything is nice and tight and adhered, I'm just going to lay down my cutting mat and grab my utility blade, and I'm just going to drag it right along the edge of the tag. There's no need to overlap it to the back. We're just going to trim along the natural edge of the tag. Now, once that's all done, here is what your tag will look like, all nice and clean and covered. So now we can start to embellish our little tag. Now I am going to go ahead and grab the hook. I'm going to remove it from the packaging. It does come with little screws for it. Now these screws are a little large for my project, but I did want to show you that it did come with screws. But before we can determine where the place of the hook is, I'm going to trim it out. Now I had some of this netting looking kind of ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. I just thought this was so interesting. So I'm just going to lay this along the bottom of my little tag sign, put 3 dots of hot glue across it and glue it into place about a ½ inch from the bottom edge. Now I do want it to overlap on each side as well because we are going to be wrapping this to the back, but I'm going to trim it down to only about maybe a ½ inch is overlapping. Now I'm going to just strategically place my hot glue on some of that mesh netting and then secure both sides to the back. Now to accent this even further, I'm going to grab some of this metal ribbon from the Dollar Tree. Now I know this is so hard to find for a lot of you, but you have to go daily to catch it because it goes fast. So I'm going to cut a piece that overlaps the front edge of the tag, and I'm going to go ahead and place it across the middle of your little ivory ribbon that you put down. You want to lay it right across the middle and fold it to the back. Now I am putting a couple dots of hot glue on this. You probably really don't even need hot glue since that metal kind of bends over and attaches itself to the sign, but we're going to fold it over to the back as shown here. Now to cover up all of those folds, I just cut a long piece of craft paper just to go across the bottom, and I'm going to add this with some hot glue. This is just to maintain that cleanliness of the back of the sign to make sure it looks nice and neat. Now you can go ahead and just add the hot glue along the edges of that strip after you bond that first side and then press it into place, and you can see it leaves a nice clean finish, and now you have a decorative bottom edge. So now go ahead and grab that hook. Now I decided after adding that I wanted my hook further up top. So I wanted it maybe about a 3/4 of an inch from the top, and I'm going to mark those screw holes with my Sharpie to make sure it's nice and centered. Now as I mentioned before, the black screws that come with it are a little large, so I'm using some 1/2 inch wood screws that I had on hand. Now these also are longer, but they won't poke out nearly as much as the black screws. So I'm using a couple dots of hot glue just to secure that hook into place while we start to apply our little 1/2 inch screws. And I'm just doing this with a screwdriver. It will go through the back slightly, but we're going to add both of those screws in place. And as you can see, they do poke through just a little. Now in order to cover that up, I like to put what I call a mountain of hot glue over it, and it forms a little bubble over it, so the sharp edge will be hidden and it won't damage your wall or any kind of wall piece that you are displaying it on. Now I'm just using a little bit of white acrylic paint to touch up those silver screws so everything blends in, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to add a jute string, hang string to the back. So I'm going to add a dot of hot glue, 2 at the top of the back, and I want to make sure I press the knot of that jute string on each end into that glue. Now once that dries, I'm going to add a staple directly on top of the knot and staple that in place, and that'll make sure that the staple doesn't go all the way through your sign to the front. And then of course I'm following up with that craft paper just to make sure it's a nice neat finish on the end of each one of those knots, and covering that up so the back will look nice and professional. So now you have a hang string for your sconce. Now for the top, I am just going to stick with the theme here, and I'm going to add another finger bow. This time I'm going to be adding a 3-loop finger bow the same way that I have created before, and just making sure that that is nice and tight and that everything and the loops are nice and even. Now once you take that off and trim down those ends and give yourself a nice dovetail, this will be perfect for the top center of your little sconce. Now I'm just going to place it up top just to make sure that it's the right size, and that's exactly what we're going for. Now to add another element, I took a couple clips of some eucalyptus, and I get this by the large bundles from Walmart for only $2, and I'm going to press that right up in the center, making sure the leaves drape down, and then I'm simply going to hot glue that bow right in the center to tie everything together. That is just the element this piece needed to kind of pull everything together. So now that you have the decorated sconce part done, we need to figure out what we're going to hang. Now what I decided to do was to use a mason jar, and I've already covered the little gold lid with some more of that Farmhouse ribbon that we used before. Now to hang it, I'm just taking some thick jute twine, and I'm just going to wrap it around the top of the lid on each side as shown here on top of the jar. And then when you screw your lid on over those jute string pieces, it locks it in place. So now you have a little hook. Just trim off the extra jute twine that sticks out under that little ring, and now you can hook it on and hang anything you like in this project. Now to stick with my theme, I am adding some roses. Now I did have a second bundle of these cabbage roses that I did pick up from Family Dollar. So I'm going to clip off 2 roses to go into my little mason jar. Now I'm just going to trim them down so they fit perfectly and snug inside of that little jar. Now another element I wanted to add were some Dollar Tree fairy lights. I love using their fairy lights in these projects. So I just tested them out, and I'm going to just stick the fairy lights into the jar. Now amazingly, the little hook at the top of the mason jar, the little gap there, was perfect to fit the battery pack on. So you don't even have to put your battery pack in your jar. You can sit it right on top. So I put the lights in there, a little bit of greenery, and I'm going to add my roses. Now my roses ended up just kind of flopping a little bit more for my liking. So I'm going to tie them together with some jute string first, just to kind of keep the rosebuds nice and snug together. And then I'm going to stick them in that mason jar. And how cute is this? Once you add that in, you have a beautiful option of lighting your jar or not lighting your jar with this beautiful sconce. Now once that's all done, you are ready to go, and you can choose to use your lights or not. Now just debut this piece in your space. How sweet is this? Now I love all of the elements that tie this sconce piece together, and it ties perfectly into the rose theme of my other projects. From the ornate hook design, the huge cabbage roses, and even the metal ribbon accents, this is definitely a fun project. And then all you have to do is blow them away with the lighted option to really impress. Now, I had so much fun creating all of these projects today, and I do love them all. But let me know in the comments which one of these projects was your favorite today. Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. If you like videos like these and you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen to make sure you hit the bell and be notified when the next DIY goes live. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.